Is the Sunday NBA live before lock. I know most of you have been playing a little NFL. I have as well. We have hockey going on right now and an early NBA slate, but now we have our main slate, a six gamer going off here at 6 o'clock. So we are going to talk through that. We have a variety of injury news. Some we're still waiting on, some we have, and we've got all sorts of things to discuss. So let me hit the high notes here. Eddie's working on getting some of his stuff uploaded here behind the paywall, but in front of the paywall, we've got several things we can offer you. One of them I'll drop here into chat is the Cash Games Building Block article, which is a nice little piece that we put out every day. It's got your primetime player, good value, risky value, which explains, sometimes it's chalk that we don't like. Sometimes it's guys that their upside may not be there. We want to explain where the risk is, etc. The fantasy cruncher tip of the day and all that good stuff. And then we've got, today we're sponsored by Fantasy Draft, home of rake-free DFS. So how do you do that, you ask? Well, I will tell you about that in a little bit. And then the other thing we have is the Fred Van Elite contest. Yes, indeed. We are back and in full effect. I was worried we weren't going to fill it because I forgot to post it last night. So I made it just 75. There's 2 spots left. So let me drop that in there because you guys are not going to want to miss out on that.
I wish that was free. Just want to say.
The Fred Van...
I'd like to throw my placeholder into it every day. That's the only reason. Like, I would enjoy playing in sort of an internal league against these guys and put my thing down because my lineup is usually pretty guessable by game time, but I would still really enjoy that.
All right. Well, I'm dropping the link to my pinned tweet in chat there. So here's the trick. What you got to do is you go to my pinned tweet and you're going to join the Osmo DK League. And then within that is where I post the Fred Van Vliet contest. So the rules are I have to play Fred Van Vliet. You do not. And if you win with an Osmo avatar, you reach out to me and I get your 30 free days of Osmo premium content. Pretty fair deal there. The rest of it, it's $1 for the contest and it just pays out normally. It usually will run 100 man, pays out top 20 or 75 man. Pays out top 15. When NFL winds down and we really get going into NBA, we may expand that a little bit, but we're growing and filling these things pretty rapidly. So that's what we have there. Now let's talk about a couple injuries and our news and notes. So let me call that up for you guys. And then not to worry, you're going to get plenty of Eddie here. Plenty. So if we look at things that we know thus far, Josh Richardson is out again with the hamstring. No surprise there. Joel Embiid, lucky for him, his hip's feeling better, so he's going to be taking on the Toronto Raptors here after getting.
Yeah, I'm not sure anything was terribly wrong with his hip to begin with.
I think that might have been was sarcasm there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was using the sarcasm font. Damn it.
I think that might have been one of those. Doc Rivers may have $50,000 to spend, but we don't want to do that to Brett. So yeah, his hip. It's nasty. So, yeah.
Yes, so he'll be in and starting. Matisse Thybulle had a ankle injury in the last game, but he should be back. Bama Adebayo will be playing. Dion Waiters, sick in the head, suspended, whatever you'd like to choose, but he's not going to be available this evening. Justice Winslow is out, lower back strain, and then Goran Dragic still out. So those are the important Miami pieces for the Clippers, who get the lovely matchup against the Washington Wizards. We're going to have JaMychal Green back after a bruised tailbone. No Isaiah Thomas. We'll talk about Ish Smith. Price ticking up a little bit, but he's still a solid option. We don't know what's going on here with Corey Joseph. He was a game time decision in the last game. We were giving a long look there to Yogi Ferrell. Joseph ended up playing. Ferrell still ended up outplaying him on the strength of, I think he scored like 17 NBA points for 21 total points. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. We have Marvin Bagley, questionable. He has been out for almost 6 weeks now with the thumb injury, but he is going to be coming back at some point within the next week, they believe. I don't know if that will be tonight or not. Rajon Rondo is another interesting point. This is going to be the last game of the night. This is the deep late night hammer. He has got a sore hamstring. He left the game early. We're going to want to look at Alex Caruso. I'm so used to calling him Alex Carusimo just to tease Osimo. I sometimes forget his real name. He's minimum priced. He should see 20 minutes. his upside will be accessible if Rondo is out. You're going to want to look at some late swaps because we probably won't have that Rondo news. If you can get Rondo playing in this one, that's a phenomenal spot as well. And then Karl Anthony Towns is fine. Jeff Teague and Andrew Wiggins dealing with respective ankle and thumb injuries. So there we are. Oh, you have a new person in YouTube chat. Ed Fear's MTG career with a picture of you.
Wow. Well, it's been dead for, when was the last time I actually suited up for the Pro Tour? A number of years ago. 03 or
Wait,
something?
you played on the Pro Tour?
Yeah.
I was not aware of that.
A dozen of them or so for about 5 years. Yeah. I had 2 9ths and an 11th on the Pro Tour where all the prizes really escalate to the top 8. So,
that's good. We've done all these shows and I was not aware. I mean, I knew you played and you've got the board game championships and all that stuff. I did not realize that Magic, the Gathering. I know what MTG stands for.
I flopped a magical card or two back in my day. As a matter of fact, I keep some, plus-sized ones just for inspiration, just hanging around here. You need those magic cards the size of your damn head. I keep some of those sitting around just for inspiration.
All right.
Yeah, I'm a gamer with I put the gay in gamer. I'm a big fan of just about any form of competition I can get my hands on. I think it's the greatest of things, whether it's speed knitting or whatever your fancy may be. I got to get back to work. Don't get me started talking about the match.
Oh yeah, you keep working on that. And yes, Chad is now getting salty. Hey, we're gonna have plenty of Eddie because I'm gonna be quiet here in a minute. But he's fixing some stuff up here for the premium.
I'm close to done. I had a heck of a non-DFS day. Normally I get about an hour and a half in the morning, and on Slate the side probably 2.5 in the afternoon, and I have a process, and I just tried to cram it all in, and obviously I'm a bit behind the 8 ball. So you will have rankings in 90 seconds to 2 minutes, and then I will talk really fast for the 50 minutes anteceding that particularly wonderful moment.
Yes. So there we go. All right. Let's talk about the slate then. I can do that just as well. We'll probably meander a little bit. We've got Toronto at Philadelphia. That's going to be an intriguing game. You've got Philadelphia home favorites by 3 over Toronto. We do have Lowry and Ibaka are back. You've got Chicago at Miami. Miami is favored by 7. We know that they are one of the better defenses and slower playing teams in the league, but Chicago, bit of a mess there, kind of a disaster. So those are going to be roster fillers. There's 2 games that I personally would like us to target tonight. One will be the Los Angeles Clippers at the Washington Wizards. Clippers are road favorites by 8. It's a 236 over under. That is the highest on the slate today. Sacramento at Dallas. You have Dallas favored by 8 at home. This one, we know that Luka Doncic is sort of like the James Harden. He is just going to get his, but he is also priced very, very well. You've got OKC at Portland. We've had a resurgence here from Steven Adams, who's been looking really good lately after being seemingly beat up, broken, whatever you would like to say for the beginning of the season. But his last handful of games have been what we have come to expect from our favorite Kiwi. And then you've got Minnesota and Los Angeles as our late night hammer. LeBron James is my primary focus today. He's the guy I would like to have if I'm just building 2 or 3 lineups. I want him on there. He leads the league in assists, and he is shooting 49% on the season, which is actually below his career high just by a tick. But otherwise, he's been doing very nice, averaging 25 points a game, etc. We are paying for his safety in this matchup, and it's been a while since Anthony Davis has exited to the locker room in game, so perhaps that will happen at some point here. But looking for our placeholder value on these, if you're playing over on DK, it's definitely going to be guys like Moritz Wagner. God, I was typing his name today with a V, and now I wanted to say it as Wagner.
Mo Wagner, you're good.
Mo Wagner, the 22-year-old German. So he is averaging 7 fouls per 36. He has played more than 26 minutes twice, including his last game. He got almost 30 minutes in that last one. The deal with him, of course, is the fouls. He's done a decent job of staying out of foul trouble. He still accrues them, but the hope being that there's not guys that he really needs to foul today with Montrezl Harrell and Ivica Zubac in there.
So Montrezl Harrell needs to be fouled. That's a man who needs to be fouled.
Well, potentially, but he's not the defensive stalwart. Or no, let me rephrase that. He's not the big guy that tends to burn Wagner when he's in the paint.
That's fair.
So that is our guys there for our cheapies. We'll sort through what we think about Bradley Beal. Tougher matchup for him because there are several capable defenders they can put on him, including Kawhi Leonard. So that makes it a little difficult for him, but he is just going to get the minutes and volume. And if his shot's going in, that is going to outweigh his matchup. Guys I don't like today, Abdul Nader, a little bit of an empty stat line. Kelly Olynyk is hit and miss so often, but I've seen him talked about on a few different sites for some discounts here. And then the question really becomes, do we trust George and or Leonard in this high-paced game? And for me, that's where I'd kind of like to take a little bit of a look-see under the hood, because you can look at those guys, but then you can also look at some of the guys coming off the bench, like the aforementioned Harrell and Sweet Lou Williams.
I am uploading as we speak. 20 seconds.
There we go. And chat will breathe a collective sigh of relief because we still have 49 minutes.
Yeah, sorry everybody. 6th day in a row for me. I thought I could get it done. While I do this, I will say out of my hand, I was with one of my daughter's friends today who's disabled. She has something called CMT, which is not terribly different from cerebral palsy. But this 14-year-old kid really wanted to participate in what we were doing today, which was basically going door to door and selling fruit to raise funds for various high school programs, and walks much slower than I would walk backwards on all fours. And this kid sweating to truck it for a half mile, and then I picked her up and carried her probably a half mile to a mile today. So boy, does my back kill me. But spirit on this kid. So I guess I came to two conclusions. One, I am old and out of shape, and two, my life is pretty wonderful and I have no license to complain about anything. Projections are up. Let's get to work.
All right, let's start off with that exciting game there, Eddie, and we'll just kind of hop around here. The Wizards and Clippers, biggest over-under of the day. I'm curious how you think the Clippers guys, is it worth spending on, well, I don't want to say spending because they're not overly priced, but is it worth earmarking our salary cap to Paul George and to Kawhi Leonard in this matchup where they are road favorites?
I don't know. I got to look at the ownership for the first time. Those two teams played 10 days ago, give or take a hair, and some number of players were good because the Clippers won in regulation 150 to 125. So when you look at the posted over-under, which I imagine is within a couple points of 240, understand that there's a very reasonable ceiling above that. Having IT2 out would raise your over under, and having Thomas Bryant out would lower it. So you're probably at or actually reverse those two things. But yeah, that game is scheduled to be a track meet. So let's see where we are for ownership.
We just got an update if you want to hit refresh.
Nice. I mean, I literally got it a second and a half ago, so I presume.
You're still on the good one there. Sorry, that was our projections, not the ownership.
No problem. Derek Jones Jr. bit seems a little optimistic. If there's a trend this year, it's guys who cost 3x being overowned. We had Moutier Day, and we had Corey Joseph Day, and we had, certainly sometimes they get there, but occasionally they become, somewhat chalky in odd spots. Derek Jones Jr. currently projected as the 7th highest owned player, and he's at 24.3%. He's basically tied with the 6th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd highest owned players. They're all at 24.x. So we have Kent-ish, and then a 5-way tie, which includes Derek Jones Jr. That's a little high for DJJ. He's not the flat minimum. He's 3,300, which is relevant. The scoring doesn't play to his skill set, where he's become a very adequate steals guy. So I kind of prefer, I'm presuming, close to minimum price. He's fine. He should be assured his role in the rotation with the continued absence of Dragic and Winslow. But if you go back and look at that last game he played, 27 minutes, which, feels pretty good. But, I think that's sort of towards the max. I don't mind it. It's maybe a touch high, but the more I think about it, it's not like he's one of these 50, 60, 70% guys. Okay. So, nothing here seems out of realm unreasonable. So the most owned guy, I'm just going to ramble for a minute. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely.
All right. So the most owned guy we're looking at here is Kent Bazemore. So if we go back and look at the game in which Rodney was injured. I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, because I recall the person who actually first came in was Mario Hezonja, but I want to make sure I have that right. Not that he played an overwhelming amount the rest of the game, and I think it's that Bazemore was already on the court, but I just want to make sure I'm correctly getting all this. I haven't had time to. Usually, I like verify all these thoughts before I get here, but again, I'm flying seat of my pants here a little bit, so I'm pretty sure Hood. Okay, let's take a look at things. All right, there's Hood. Hood got hurt. McCollum and Melo had already checked out. Nasser Little and Anthony Simons, or Simmons as it apparently is, had already checked in. And then Hood got hurt. Mario Hezonja checked in for him. And Kent Bazemore. Then there's a weird-ass rotation they ran here. I got to check fouls and a couple other things. I don't have the perfect memory of how exactly this worked out with Whiteside and everything else. Tolliver came in to back up Whiteside. The first bit was... Okay. And then you had Bazemore playing the entire second quarter. So Hezonja came back. Yeah, so this all comes around by saying, yes, I think it is likely that you get a preponderance of minutes out of Bazemore. I did not have time to minutes project this game today, but I would probably, off the top of my head, move him up to... let me take that and compare it exactly analogously to what Hood was getting. Yeah, I was about to say 31 minutes. You're looking at 30 or 31 minutes. That's a lot of time. The matchup isn't a particularly daunting one, and this ownership is not out of hand. So 31% Kent Bazemore is fine. Now, I will say you are going to move Kent Bazemore minutes, who is someone who already has a significant and steady role in the rotation, who usually gets somewhere between 20, 24, 25 minutes in games that play out all the way. Occasionally he catches a benching, but I'll just game log it for context. 25 last game, 23 the game before that, 19 and 16 the two games before that. The 19, there was some foul trouble, and they were eventually blown out by the Clips. 21-23 before that. So I think it is safe to say you are going to get an extra 7-8 minutes out of Kent Bazemore here. You are going to lose usage because you are now starting and spending larger portions of the game next to CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard and Hassan Whiteside and Carmelo Anthony. I mean, you are the number 5 option on offense by quite a distance. So do I think this increases his projection? Yeah, he's going to get somewhere to the order of 20-25% more minutes. His usage would come down, but not 20 or 25%. So on a shorter slate, he's fine. He's close to a cash staple. It's going to be hard for him to screw it up too much, but I would project him for something like 31 minutes and 23.5 fantasy points, which is just fine at $3,800, or I don't know what his price is on FanDuel offhand. Taking a look at that on the fly also. He costs $3,800 on FanDuel. Small forward there. That is obviously better. So yeah, I don't have a strong take there. Again, you always want to be worried about the reduction. Ish Smith, we have second at 30%. That also feels about right. I don't like to manufacture takes for the purpose of doing so. That's about where that should be. The over-under in that game, is massive. The price is obviously no longer where it was. We're not dealing with, $3,600 and $3,600. The price on FanDuel is brilliant. That is much, much harder to get away from. One of a few guys who I really like who are priced more advantageously on FanDuel. Top of my head, the other ones I saw in the 5 minutes I had to look at FanDuel before would be Duncan Robinson, who is $100 for every minute he played in the last game, of 42 minutes for his $4,200 at shooting guard on FanDuel. Much less exciting on DraftKings. Still good. I like him quite a bit. Matchup with Chicago is great. I don't know if 42 minutes happens again, but you're still without Dragic. You're going to want some pieces of the Heat. On FanDuel, that price on Robinson is great. And Bam Adebayo, who is dollar per dollar cheaper on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. We have him in that glut of 24% guys on DraftKings. He'll be higher than that on FanDuel, probably closer to 35%. And I would still have more. If you... and I would not be surprised if that... I wouldn't be surprised if the actual ownership ended up being higher than we're currently projecting for a couple of reasons. One, he was questionable much of the day, not just like probable, but questionable. That keeps it down, and that's going to have an effectual raise as the day goes on. Two, all the bad analytics point to him. Like if you just look at game logs, which without context is a really bad idea. He beat the living crap out of Chicago when these two teams played, I want to say about 3 weeks ago, 2.5, 3 weeks ago. He had I don't even remember the line, but he had some 55, 60 fantasy points. He beat the crap out of them. And two centers against Chicago, and specifically, Bam type centers. It's a really brilliant matchup, and they've repeatedly got pounded by guys. But just like everything kind of points to him. So I have a feeling that number even comes up a little bit. Someone asked me today that they heard somewhere on something that he was icing his ankle or his foot after a game a week ago, and they thought that was a thing because he was doing it while he was giving questions. I didn't understand the full story, but just for reference, when you play basketball, for 40 minutes and run as hard as you can 40 minutes a week, you ice something after every game. Like seeing a player icing something is... I don't like to say anything is irrelevant because I believe in nuances. I believe that's the kind of stuff you should pay attention to. But saying like, I saw this guy put ice on his elbow is as close to meaning nothing as something can. These guys frequently take cold baths, which is just put 6 bags of ice in a tub, fill it with cold water, and get in there, just keep inflammation down and stuff. So whenever you're slightly sore and it just hurts a little bit, you throw some ice on something. That also leads me to mention, by the way, Miami, I believe, one of the few teams on an island today. This is a 6-game slate. There are 12 teams on this slate. 8 of them, I believe, are on some fashion of a back-to-back. Miami is one of the 4 that is not. So deferring to Miami or as a tiebreaker there, I'm a fan of getting more players on Miami. I believe the Lakers, the Trailblazers, the Wizards, and the Heat are not on back-to-backs. I believe all 8 other teams played yesterday or play tomorrow. Which, again, changes a little bit depending on coaching and how deep the bench is and any number of things. And obviously, there are some players who have a history of being sat on these sort of things. But, for example, against Chicago is on the front end of a back-to-back. They are in Miami tonight and host, I think, Toronto tomorrow, which tells you who Toronto plays tomorrow. But yeah, that game, real quick up top, Bam is a priority for me. We have obviously seen Jimmy Butler be magnificent a couple games in a row now. I have no issue with anyone getting to Jimmy Butler. The matchup is very, very good overall. And we've seen what he can do these last couple of games. He doesn't need further exposition in that frame. But we're now up to $8,800. Remember, this whole thing started at $7,300, which obviously last couple performances you'd accept perfectly happily at 88. And I'm not surprised to see that again today. But price really matters. First thing, obviously, probably don't need to be told that. But secondly, he was a little more restrained in the Chicago game because they did overly pay attention to him. based on that recollection of that game, there was literally times where I could see him hunting Zach LaVine, and Zach LaVine would run around the screen and be like, no, you can't have me. And then he'd hunt Zach LaVine some more. And it was honestly kind of funny to watch. And they kept throwing, Chris Dunn and Tomas Satoransky and some of their more competent defenders at him. At shooting guard, they have a number of guys they can throw at you. Down low, they don't have anybody. Like, they just don't have a good defender on that team. It's not like they're going to be like, release the Luke Cornett. Like, there's just no outs for that. Thad? I guess we'll go with Thad. That's above average. We'll get Thad in there. And I'm just going to look this up now because I can't remember everything off the top of my head, but I recall Thad actually playing a few extra minutes in that game. I think he got into the mid-20s. I think I ranked him today, which isn't terribly relevant. Not someone you need to concentrate on with everyone else being healthy down low. I don't think there's enough for him in that spot where he'd be any sort of focus for me. But just long story short, a lot of people are like, windmill slam, Butler's a must. I love Butler. I like Butler a lot. I ranked him 2As. The previous production has been brilliant, and the ownership is not out of control here, considering a great matchup. He is well down the list. He is at 17% owned. That's a very small number. He's right in there. He's amusingly right in there with Bradley Beal and Paul George, and only a hair under Damian Lillard. So that's a very interesting group to select from. So looking at that number, I'd honestly probably have more. Like, that's 17% we have him at. 8,800 is a real number. FanDuel 93 is a real number. I probably want a little more than that. But again, none of these ownerships are jumping out at me right now as this number is unreasonable. And one of the reasons is that the ownership is very flat. When you come up with bad ownership, it tends to be wildly disparate from the remaining ownership. It's like, all right, you got number one, Emmanuel Mudiay or Corey Joseph or whomever at 66%, and one guy at 40, and then everyone else at 20 or less. Getting away from that guy projects a clear advantage. Your ownership right here is 31, 30, 25, 25, 25, 25, 24, 21, 20, 19, 19, 19. Like, that's so fading a guy has much less advantage. I don't think I get to Jimmy Butler in a single lineup. I would have no issue with anyone who did. It is difficult. I haven't projected very similarly to, for example, Paul George, who I think is less likely to sit than Kawhi, is fair to say. And Paul George is $1,000 less. So I slightly prefer Bam. I slightly prefer Paul George. I probably slightly prefer spending $1,000 on Anthony Davis, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Jimmy Butler play. And yeah, nothing else is jumping out to me as a really horrific idea. So I'll throw the ball back to you.
All right. Breaking news. I just dropped the link in chat. Fast Eddie Fair's rankings are free today. You can get them by going to the site. You can get them going to Osimo NBA on Twitter, or you can go scroll up a little bit and get that link in chat. I'll drop it in one more time. We had a super chat come in. Let me think. Kristaps Porzingis or Danilo Gallinari for cash. I'm assuming it's DK, if I remember correctly. They're similarly priced there.
I think Kristaps is 6'8" and Danilo is 6'1". Okay. So I'm not sure. Although FanDuel, they're not even the same position. So I don't even know. Let me first confirm that pricing. Although he's just asking about production and which one I would like more in cash. I would still take Kristaps Porzingis. Okay. Danilo is more cashy in the shape of his production curve, and that he is well more consistent. But Kristaps just projects much better for me by like 6.5 fantasy points. I mean, it's significant, and I'm a big Gallinari fan, but I have trouble getting there. There's just a few. That team, you just have, now that you have like production Steven Adams. Maybe today is the good Chris Paul game. I like Chris Paul. I like Chris Paul against Damian Lillard. It's not I've been banging on for about 5 years. You've probably heard me talk about this.
Oh, absolutely.
Some 18 times. It hasn't held out over these last couple of years as Paul has changed teams and either been playing next to James Harden or just a couple of years older.
Lillard's gotten better, by the way. Paul's getting a little older.
And Lillard has improved and Paul's gotten older, so that's not really a thing that is worth. It's not fantasy relevant for me now. There were several years in a row there. Literally, 2014 to 2017, people would be like,
I like his lunch money.
I'd be like, I like Lillard tonight. I'm like, I like Chris Paul, who has outscored him 14 of the last 15 times and costs $1,500 less and gets up for that matchup every single time. Like, that was the thing. there's too many, and that's what I'm talking about with taking things out of context, like head-to-heads or defense versus position or whatever. It's there's so many moving parts that they're sometimes not only fraudulent or worthless, they're actually misrepresentative. So, but so when you talk about Gallinari, by the way, 6,700. So I like him even less at 68 versus 61. I think I still prefer Kristaps. But that would have been close, 68 and 67, and that would just be Kristaps for me. I understand your reticence and the fact that you do get some, but Kristaps has been underperforming versus what his base numbers would suggest for me. The shooting is going to get significantly better. There was a great article on The Ringer somewhere recently about how he really changed his game to move into this Dallas system, and they got him away from a lot of his old bread and butter, which is 14-foot Dirk shots, and now he's just taking threes or trying to get into the paint, and how he's sort of struggling with that. But he's going to continue to improve as this year goes on, assuming his health holds up, which is a real thing. Even when he was healthy, he was a guy who fell off over time. Like, he historically has had a body that has struggled with the grind for whatever reason. And I think it's reasonable in any season-long context, or just picking him on any day for DFS, to have an eventual concern for that. But I still think it's more likely that he will net improve versus decrease. But the long way around is when you talk about Gallinari, I generally like this matchup for the Thunder. But I like the matchup for Chris Paul. I don't mind playing Steven Adams. And like, all these guys are, like, they have five guys. They have five guys between 6,100 and 7,100 then. 6,100 that I was thinking of as Schroeder. I don't mind any of them, and it's really hard for me to land on one, and no more than two at most are going to be worth it, and quite possibly that number is one. So I like Chris Paul at 7,100. I like Steven Adams at 68. I don't mind Gallinari at 67. I think there's still ceiling games in the tank somewhere for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander at 66, and Dennis Schroeder at 61 can certainly pop off once in a while. So, and you get games out of this team frequently where those five guys take 10, 11, 11, 12, and 12 shots. So they're sort of always fighting against that as well, which just makes me a little less inclined for them in a GPP context. It's still close for me with Gallo, but there you go.
Kristaps or Bam on FanDuel. It's a $2 super chat from Ingma.
Bam, not close. I have Bam for 4.5 fantasy points, and maybe should even be more.
All right, a couple more here on Yahoo. Nunn is $18. He is 8% projected ownership. Hero is $10 at 42%. Would you play the lesser owned Nunn?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like Tyler Hero quite a bit. And again, $10. Yahoo, shout out to, are they our sponsor today?
No, Fantasy Draft.
Sweet. Then Yahoo, come on. You got one guy to fix the price. Like, literally, okay. I have worked in DFS and worked in fixing, manually changing prices for years. It's not complicated. Even if you want to do the lazy ass way of doing it, have the algorithm spit them out, then have an employee look at them for 8 minutes before they're posted. It takes like 3 damn seconds. Come on, Yahoo, step your game up. Sorry, that always drives me. FanDuel and DraftKings used to, I'm like, I'd be crazy. I'm like, we manually checked every salary at every company I've ever worked at, but with between 9 and 17 employees for 6 years. You guys have 655 employees. You don't have one guy to take 7 minutes before you post the slate to make sure some guy isn't grotesquely overowned. Like, oh, okay, rant done. Just saying, you shouldn't be $10 again. Come on. It's not that hard. Oh, let me get rid of that 0 and put a 6 in there. Makes it a conversation now.
So this is why you should go over and look at Fantasy Draft, because you don't have to pay a rake. Why don't you have to pay a rake? Because you get a subscription that allows you to play your entry fees. So mine, for the example, this is the best way to explain it. I pay $5.99 a month. I can play $1,000 in entry fees over 30 days.
Emac, if you played $1,000 in contests on FanDuel, I think you'd pay like $150 in rake.
I actually would. So here I have to pay my deposit fee, which is 3.5%. So I put my $200 in, paid $7, and I'm on my third month of paying for the $1,000 play time, shall we say. So what is that? 21 plus 7, that's $28. I've saved over $50 already just just by doing that, and it's like my fourth.
I think
side.
you've saved I think you've saved way more than that.
For the volume I've played. I haven't played that 1,000 each time.
Oh, okay. That's
the dollars in play. I've saved 50.
Right, but to use your example, if you maxed that 1,000, which is a good idea because it's free after you've deposited and paid that fee.
Correct.
You're paying nothing. You're literally dollar in, dollar out at that point. If you put $1,000 in, okay, they're going to take a $35 deposit fee. Okay. And then they're going to charge you, what'd you say, $5 a month? $6 a month?
Yes.
Okay, so you're going to pay $53 in rake to play $3,000 in contests over those 3 months, assuming you can just break even with no rake for those 3 months and don't have to redeposit. And obviously, you could profit. But if you did that, you would be paying a stellar 1.76% rent or rake, which is obviously well less than, say, almost 10 times that much. So yeah, it's the rake savings are it's very interesting because one of their taglines is on other sites you might lose up to 30% of your bankroll due to rake. I think you can lose 100% of your bankroll due to rake, or 98. Like the last day you have to lose the contest. But if you go in there and you grind cash and you put down $1,000 a day and play 30 grand in whatever a month and pay $4,000 in rake a month or $3,000 on your cash contests, that might slowly whittle away until at the end of the year you had no money left. And at $3,000 a month in contest, that would have been $36,000 you spent on rake for your cash contests. So I think you can lose 99% of your bankroll to rake. So I always found their 30% number a little specious. But yeah, long story short, it is a massive advantage.
All right, we've got a super chat here from Anthony Davis. Clearly, he's watching as he's gearing up for the game. He wants your thoughts on
how's your I want my on your thoughts. How's your shoulder?
We'll see if he answers that. But he would like your thoughts on the Minnesota backcourt tonight.
We don't know anything. I believe we're on Teague questionable, Shabazz probable.
Yes.
Presumably, Jared Culver will still start at point guard. I ranked Shabazz Napier, who would get interesting for me in the event that Jeff Teague is out. Teague is now too expensive in a very difficult... I have spoken extensively about being a Laker defense believer. I've said it roughly, 9 times this season. And generally, avoiding the Lakers has been a solid policy. Obviously, value opening up changes things. So if you are without Wiggins... I mean, this is really a, are you without Wiggins? Are you without Teague? Are you without Wiggins and Teague type situation? If I am without Wiggins, it puts Teague into play for me if he is playing and starting. If I'm out without Wiggins and Teague, it puts Culver into play for me. And then second, believe it or not, I probably go Covington. I don't have a problem going third to Okogie. Probably. I don't really want to get into the Trevion Grahams, etc. The minutes still end up being a little dicey there. You get all sorts of weird stuff. And again, it's really not a matchup I want to take big samples of. So it is a situation I'm not super excited for regardless, because the prices on everyone have come up a little bit. Okogie was 3,700. He's 41, I think. Teague was 52. And again, shout out for those of you who aren't members. When we got the Teague in news post lock the other day, I was sitting in chat and answered 17 questions in which I said play Teague, play Teague, play Teague, play Teague. Teague was 4% owned and went off for, I don't even know what it was, some 55 fantasy points or something. And that made the whole day. And it's just one piece of information. So yet another reason is most slates, I can't guarantee it, but I would say 9 times out of 10, I'm here for an hour after lock or towards whatever the major late slate is. And you can make some real money that way for 2 reasons. One, people aren't as attentive as they should be with late swap on both the early slates and the late slates. We have had days, even as this year is worn on, and like with all sports, enough of the fish get plucked out of the water that for every sport, there's people who are like, oh, baseball, I like baseball. And at the end of April, they're like, God, F baseball. Why was I doing that? So even after we've lost some time, people are letting guys... we recently had 1.5% Isaiah Thomas and those various things on the main slate, but the late slate, those numbers are even higher. So there's dead money on the late slates more than there should be. And the guys who should be swapped to are not swapped to enough. In a vacuum, Jeff Teague should have been, it was a big slate and a nice slate, maybe 20% owned. He was like 5% owned. So there just ended up being some massive advantages there. So this is 2 times I have pitched today And I am, as every boss I've ever had in this industry has told me, awful at shilling crap. But that's a strong fantasy draft endorsement, and an equally strong, be a member at Awesemo. There's yet another cookie for you, and plus my beautiful rankings, which I'll take 20 seconds on. I'm just a shill machine today. I can't stop it. They're also a player pool. That's every player I would play in GPPs. I update them as often as I can. Without the show, you are running the risk that I ranked a guy and didn't have time to update him for other guy being in, him being out, etc., etc. But when they are published, at usually 90 minutes before lock, they are a list of everybody I would have in a GPP. So I made you a player pool. So there you go. Done shilling. Let's get back to work.
All right, Gigi Suki says, love the show with the super chat. We love you too. I dropped the link again in there for Eddie's free rankings. You can get to that. You can get to it on the site. You can get to it a variety of ways. A couple questions we got 19 minutes left here.
I gotta go fast then. I'm actually going to storm in. I'm going to talk about a couple things real quick.
Okay, so Bagley out, Kojo game time decision update there.
Okay, good. Very useful information. Yeah, okay. That's. I mean, Bagley being in, I wouldn't want Bagley, and it just sort of screws around with the whole Barnes Bielitsa. Holmes should be safe and projects great either way, and I think the only player on that team to get double A's from me, Bogdan Bogdanovic, probable.
Yes,
I believe. Okay. So a couple things I want to mention. Don't hate Mo Harkless here. Pat's out. Rodney Magruder is still out. Jermichael Green is going to play. And I think he's just great and a more cashy option than, say, Mo Harkless. But you have outs to a significant Mo Harkless game. Jermichael being in gets rid of any Terrence Mann type interest I would have had for that. Had a lot of questions about the Wizards. And I'm generally a pretty big fan of this team. Now, simply, for the over-under, but this is another situation where, similar to the Timberwolves, prices on everybody have come up a little bit. Obviously, we've already discussed Ish, and I'm ambivalent with Ish. He's sitting at 30% ownership. That feels fine. He's probably going to be 45 on FanDuel. That feels fine. That's about where he should be at 4,600 at 1,100 over the cap instead of $2,000 over the floor, if you will, on DK. I would prefer Hachimura pretty significantly to Bertans. I think Mo Wagner is, again, about appropriately owned. There is a very big upside here. The foul trouble hasn't stuck him for 2 games, and it is going to stick him roughly half the time. So you're kind of coin flipping that. It's more or less a coin flip whether or not he loses time to foul trouble in any given game. That makes plenty of sense for me. Beal, I am somewhat disinclined towards. They just have too many good bodies for me to throw at him. Like, can he absolutely brute force his way into a good line? Sure. You had Damian Lillard against the Thunder earlier this year in one of their meetings where he managed to throw out 55, 58 fantasy points shooting, I don't know, 7 for 20 or something against that team. And you can certainly get that kind of production out of Bradley Beal. And his price is still a little bit too cheap, but the Jan 70-point upside game is hard enough for me to envision here. I'm not, he doesn't get an overwhelming endorsement, which would normally be appropriate at a player of his caliber at a price of 9,200, which is still a little bit too cheap. So I love the pace, but I would probably rather Butler, and I'd previously mentioned regarding Butler that I was a slightly bigger fan of, among others, Paul George and Bam Adebayo and other guys in that price range. So Beal, not crazy. I don't have a strong take on ownership of 23%, but the subtle price creeping up of $600 and the matchup, I like the pace, obviously. No one could not, but
we have him at 53 DK points. Does that feel high for you?
I have him at,
because he's 49. Coming in a lot of my lineup, so I just want.
I have him at 49.
Okay,
let me check the other. I mean, it's not outlandish.
Yeah. It was more the, is this a crazy one?
No, I don't think that's a crazy one. It is a little higher than I would like. For a couple of reasons, and I do think, I like the fact he's not on a back-to-back.
Yes.
That's nice. Like, they will play him 43 minutes in theory. That's really a thing that can happen. But it's that's not a crazy projection. And if you believe that projection, you should still be pretty heavily interested in a projection of 53 for $9,200 is brilliant. When you're very pleased with the projection number, that's a guy you should really focus on. Like, if he gives you 53 tonight, I think you'd be feeling pretty good. Like, it's not a dance, but you get 53 for your 9,200. You're like, yeah, that's a pretty good game. I have him at 49, which makes me a little less excited. And again, I'm speaking about the fact that it is a fairly juicy slate, and there's a lot of other plays I'm kind of interested in that range. I don't really have a Bradley Beal take, I guess, other than to say I am slightly disinclined because it feels like a spot in which it's a little tougher for him to get to the 70 I'm hoping to get out of someone in that situation.
But yeah, I think he's fine for a cash game type play. We've got him as one of the 5 raw point guys. Plus, I've been able to get him with Butler and with LeBron in my lineup without even a problem using Smish. I'm going with Alex Caruso, Bazemore, Nerlens Noel. I'm rolling the dice on that one, but
yeah, I don't mind Caruso. I don't mind Bazemore.
Noel against Whiteside. There's a lot of people asking in the chat about Snow. I got that backward. No, that's right. They're playing Portland tonight. Yeah.
You know who's another guy you could use? Boban. I'm not even kidding. All right, so let me get the bad stuff out of the way. He's Boban, frequently plays 0 minutes. There's a real chance he plays 0 minutes tonight. Would not shock me at all. Okay. He played 23 minutes last night, probably his most minutes of the year, I'm almost certain. And now he's on a back-to-back. Although it wasn't last night, it was yesterday afternoon, if somehow that factors into your calculus, him getting 5 extra hours of rest there. But basically, normally, the way that team runs its second, you recall most games, again, he's not a super consistent guy, runs a second unit that is normally Seth Curry, Justin Jackson, Delon Wright, Jalen Brunson, and Maxi Kleber at center. In this game, what happened is Delon Wright hurt himself, who is also out again today, is the only reason I bring this up. They just moved Kleber up to the 4, and Boban played in the second unit. And then again, the entire fourth quarter, because they beat the Pelicans by 46. So you're almost certainly not going to get 23 minutes again, though not impossible if there's another blowout, which is possible in this game, if not likely. But he's $3,000, and I'd have some interest in a 3% owned Boban. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, he had blowout run. No, he entered the rotation and played in the backup 5 both quarters. And again, that matchup versus the Pelicans is not a Boban-y matchup. Like, the Pelicans move, and they have young, lithe, agile centers. So it's not Boban can go out there and keep it at Boban speed. Like, that game was moving, and he was in the second unit. And in that game, he had 23 minutes and I don't even know, 45 fantasy points or something like that. I'd say it's 50-50 he plays tonight. Maybe a little better. So it's not for the faint of heart, but he is the nut minimum. And if you tell me he plays both second unit shifts, which ends up being about 17 minutes, I'd project him for 31 fantasy points. So I don't know. There's just some other ways they can go there, but there's a real chance dude is now in that backup rotation. They just bump Kleber up to the 4 and Boban plays whatever minutes a night. So I have some interest.
Some people are asking if Brunson not being ranked was an oversight.
Nope.
4 Heat too many in cash.
Almost certainly not. No. I don't have a problem if someone plays Brunson. These are GPPs playing with that squad. I just don't think the upside is there. I don't mind Jalen Brunson. And, maybe this is the night he gets, but I still have him at like 16 minutes. And 16 minutes of Jalen Brunson is worth, 14 fantasy points for me. He should probably be ranked as a D in cash and a C in tournaments, or even a C in cash and a C in tournaments. So that is, I guess that is an oversight or an error. He was one of those guys I originally expurgated, and then I figure with Boban playing and just the way it works with Justin out there and the way that team goes. But yeah, it's not crazy for me if you get to some Jalen Brunson, but I would rather Seth Curry, which is one of the reasons I believe he got ranked and Jalen didn't. But again, I was doing things in some degree of haste today, as you noticed. So yeah, I guess it's fair to say that was a bit of an oversight. So thank you for getting me back there, boys. By the way, Luka's still the hell too cheap. Sorry.
Isn't he 11,000?
11,700.
Yeah, he's coming in at like 13%. We just got a ownership update.
Yeah. No, and 40 and 50 in the last 2 games. So we'll ignore the standard 65, 70s he'd been putting up forever. So I there's plenty of decent value out there. 11.7 on DK compared to the other guys is fine. On FanDuel, that shit's too cheap.
Bazemore or Harkless?
I'm leaning Bazemore in cash, Bazemore in GPPs for me at this point. He's not high enough owned based on our projections, which I have to go with and trust at this point. I suspect that may be a little higher, but still not so high that I have any significant concern there. So,
any concern about Karl-Anthony Towns not playing tonight?
Sure. I mean, again, it is a poor matchup. It's legit a bad matchup. But if he's starting and Wiggins is out, I'm a pretty big fan of Karl-Anthony Towns at that point. He'll be low owned, and you can certainly get on top of the mountain that way. So, yeah. I do I have concern? Yes. I don't think it's incredibly I don't think it's likely that he doesn't play. Karl-Anthony Towns has literally sat 4 games in his career, or 3 or something, and he's probable, which for anyone means 90% to play. I would suggest, Karl-Anthony Towns, that number actually trucks up a little closer to 95, 96, 98. Like, I'm pretty sure dude's going to play, but it's not good. And again, the matchup is really not good, so no need to force it, but you keep an eye on it. I mean, if you're thinking of playing him on, I guess you're playing him on an on-late swap site. Do I think that's okay? I think it's fine in tournaments would be my long answer to that question. He will be very lovely low-owned.
How is 50% Boban too cute is what they're asking. I don't know that I'm playing any Boban personally. So,
and I wouldn't blame you for playing. No, he's center only, as is Bam Adebayo on DraftKings. He's power forward only on FanDuel, which is funny having spent 0 minutes at power forward. Actually, that's not true. I saw him out there next to Olenek, and Olenek was under the basket more, so maybe played a couple minutes of that. But anyhow,
there, I'll play 3% just for everybody.
Do I think it's too cute? I really try when I do this to throw out as much information as I can. A, to insulate myself so people don't threaten to kill my children when something goes wrong, and I can say, hey, I just told you and you did the thing, which is kind of crap. But B, also, I just try to explain all the details as I know them. So do I think it's too cute? No. I think it is taking a stand. And as I said, I think there's roughly a 50-50 chance he doesn't play. And you're going to immediately be out of winning any GPPs if he doesn't play. You could still get in there and cash some stuff. But I can certainly see situations in which I would just take the stand and be like, yeah, I think he holds in that spot in the rotation. And again, as soon as we get off the air here, one of the things I'm going to do is try to look for some comments and some contextualization so I can figure out, what are the odds that I think that does actually stick.
All right. Shit.
Thing. We've got language.
Well, we got 7 minutes. Thank you, chat, for reminding me I got to upload my lineups. I do appreciate that.
Thanks,
Holmes
chat.
or Horford FanDuel tournament?
Holmes, not terribly close. I have a lot of trouble getting to 76ers. I mean, it's a bad matchup. I'm fascinated by the Marc Gasol acquisition by Toronto still to this day. Literally, I think it is the preeminent example in the history of the NBA of a player being acquired specifically to deal with another player. Someone asked me about Joel Embiid before today. I have not looked at the specific numbers today. I believe Joel Embiid has had literally one game in which he has paid off his price where Marc Gasol started opposite him out of 7 regular season, 7 postseason. And I suspect he's still a little too high owned for that. Like, he's got to pay it off in a world that has Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler and Paul George and Kawhi Leonard and all these other guys. Like, he's got to be superlative somehow at his price relative to those guys. That's a tough ask, my friends. So, I get playing some if he's like 1, 2, 3% owned, and I'll check what our current number is. We have him at 11%. I think that's insanity at $10,000. I don't think there's an 11% chance he puts up a number that makes you happy. I have him projected for 45, which is a perfectly, tolerable number. But, as we discussed, I was kind of tepid on Beal, who I have projected for 4 points more for $800 less. So, yeah. I mean, it's just not path of least resistance. It's just, could Joel Embiid be like, oh, Marc Gasol, the guy who, held me and said comforting things to me while I was crying. I really want to screw this guy. I guess that might happen. Could he just, get good? Sure, but I'm pretty sure they've played, I'm not going to try to figure it out, 6-7 times in the regular season, 7 times in the postseason. I'm fairly certain you had one game where you were happy with Joel Embiid's production at $10,000 salary. So, I think 11% is nuts. And I would be very happy if he was 11% owned, because you need 60 out of him. And he has one, if that, 60-point game in his career. He had a 33-point game in the playoffs this previous May. I remember that, which I presume got him somewhere close to 60 total fantasy points. But 2-3% ownership, I'd love it. 11%, I'm perfectly happy to have absolutely zero and suck it down the 5% of the time he gets there.
All right, I've somehow got Raulzino Nieto in my lineup, and that's not what I wanted. No, Raul. Let's see. Butler and Paul, or Lillard and McCollum. We have 3 minutes.
Butler and Paul. Not terribly close either for a tournament.
How do you feel about the Toronto front court outside of Gasol, so Siakam?
OG Anunoby actually would be my first guy at his price. I'll take 30 minutes of OG Anunoby. But my two favorite plays on that team, slightly ahead of Lowry, who is slightly ahead of VanVleet. They're all priced a little too cheap on FanDuel. Not a good matchup. And we've, seen it, and it figures to be a miss. But both Powell and Anunoby are really cheap for guys who are getting the number of minutes they're going to get. And they both do carry upsides in various situations. So I actually have Powell and Anunoby as the two Raptors I'd be most interested in playing. And just one of a number of players who cost $200, $400, $800 more than Kent Bazemore, and will be, 6% owned as opposed to 30, 35. And I do think Bazemore actually will trend a little closer towards 40 by the time all is said and done, guessing at what value opens up between now and then. But I like Anunoby. I'm absolutely fine with Pascal Siakam, obviously. I'm looking for the guy who gets the Furkan hole the most often, believe it or not, is where I come in there. So probably my favorite play on this team ends up barely being Norman Powell. I would probably have my interest in this team at Powell, Anunoby, Lowry, VanVleet, Siakam. None of whom I'm super excited to play, but they're all too cheap for what they generally do. It's a bad matchup, and they're priced down for it, but those guys are all priced very inexpensively on FanDuel for the players that they are. So that's how I'd rank them.
What time does the Toronto game go off?
The Toronto game is at half past. Oh,
is it at 6?
I will just check. It is at 6. Yes, okay, we have 3 games starting now. The game's in Washington, Philadelphia. I gotta
get a Fred VanVleet lineup in there, damn it.
Do it. You got 90 seconds or so, I think.
I'll just go make sure I click him in. But yes, I do have my placeholder lineup up. It looks like we'll talk about what happened to me last night. Oh, we got 40 seconds here.
Yep. I'm just spamming for news at this point. I wonder if there's any overlay. It's a Sunday, I'm just thinking. Are you all set? Did you get your stuff in? Yeah, the main event on DraftKings is 26.5 out of 29.5. That will not overlay, but it's going to rake 6% as opposed to 15. So not a huge deal, but nice to see if you're invested.
All right, there we go. Hopefully it all worked. Woohoo! All right.
Sorry. I love that now my evening is going to be spent like, is Boban in? Did they put him in? Is he in? Is Boban in? Like, that's really going to be like my thing this evening, because I'm going to be, terrified he doesn't play now. But again, I try to talk about it. It's like last night. You can talk about last night with Mike Scott didn't even make the best possible lineup, but 2 76ers did. 3 76ers did. Can you name them, Emac?
No, I cannot.
Simmons, Trey Burke, and Kyle O'Quinn.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, interesting.
They won by 47. Trey Burke and Simmons were the flat minimum as opposed to Scott's 3,200. All had like some 35, 40 fantasy points. So they got there and, played the entire fourth. So again, I'm not super into O'Quinn or Mike Scott, and they likely won't see enough minutes. But then, through a quarter, Mike Scott had taken the most shots on the team. Through a half, he had played the most minutes on the team. It was sort of a little bit absurd how it worked out, but worth keeping as a nugget for the future. But that was really like the second game this year in which he was to any significant degree, featured. But I think part of that was the fact that tonight, and maybe this was a mistake by me, tonight, Philadelphia has Toronto. That's a statement game for them. I mean, that's, again, literally that these teams trade for players to deal with each other. Like, these are two teams that want to win the East this year and are two of, at the very worst, best 4 teams with a chance of doing it. So, last night might really have been let's let the kids go. And again, they won by 47. But even in the first half, we're a little bit powered down and looking forward to tomorrow. So let's, really let, for example, Mike Scott get some extra time in there is not a crazy thing, and maybe something I should have considered a little bit more looking ahead in the schedule. All right, this should be. Do we have some?
I'm pulling it up now. Hit that like button. Thank you. As they said, good luck to only those that hit the like button. Very nice. Sterling Womack says I remind him of his college professor. Am I a Star Wars fan? Of course. Do the sand people walk single file? Of course they do.
No, but we are meant to think they did. These blast points, too precise. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so accurate, which is why they never hit anything for the following 6 films.
Oh, Tusken Raiders. That's the name. I couldn't think of the name of them. Tusken Raiders, yeah. All right.
You know what the lead Tusken Raider's name was in that scene, don't you?
I do not.
It was Hoar. 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 Not to be confused with
Isn't that a fine how do you do? Jeez.
Yeah, there you go. Do you know what the name of someone who plays the type of music that was played in the Mos Eisley Cantina is called?
I don't, but I do.
The type of music is called Jizz.
Oh God.
Jizz. And the professors of it, those musicians, are called Jizz Whalers. You can't make this up.
God, the 70s were a wonderful time.
Yeah.
All right.
Too true. I mean,
you'll not find
a
more wretched hive
of scum and villainy. We must be cautious. I've been to that site, by the way. It's in Tunisia.
Interesting. Yeah. Who is the most popular play of the night?
Oh shit. Okay. We have 3 games, right? So I want to make sure I have everybody here. I have the Heat and the Bulls, right? You have the Clippers and the Wizards.
Yep.
And we have
Toronto, Philly.
Philly. Okay. The most popular player. All right. I'm just going to list contenders as I come to them today. Because you have there's a lot of dudes on the Heat who are going to get some love. So you have Jimmy Butler. Yeah, it's probably going to be Ish. It's probably going to be. Is it Ish?
It is Ish.
Oh, okay. That was pretty easy. 33?
Wrong. Very wrong. A rare Eddie. Very, very wrong. 46.
Wow. I went higher than our last ownership projection, by the way. So if I was very, very wrong, ownership projections were very, very very.
Harrell's number 2 at 36. That's way higher than I would have thought.
Yeah, and again, also higher than we had projected. Yeah. So let me talk about those for a second. I like Montrezl Harrell quite a bit. That's too high if everybody's in. Like Chase Harrell has all the monster sauce in this spot. I'm a big fan of him, and he's just well too cheap at 63 or whatever the hell. So I like Harrell. That's a bit much. The 46% ish is well too high. I reacted ambivalently to 30-31, and that's what he about should be. That's honestly, if you told me what percentage should each of these guys be owned, it should be in about that range. What's Adebayo? Because I have a feeling, given just those numbers, that he's going to end up being at a much happier number for me. Because again, he was one of the guys we had in the 21% bubble, 24%. Yeah. All right, so that's pretty exciting. So all right, so you said ish on top 46. That's too high. $5,000 ish is too high, and I get it. People went, oh, it's still $5,000. He's been really good 2 games in a row, and highest over under of the night. Which yeah, he seems fine, but 46% owned. It's still Ish Smith. It's very similar to it's still Corey Joseph. He's a better fantasy producer than Corey Joseph, but top of my head, I don't know. But I would guess in his NBA career, Ish Smith is a 0.9 fantasy point per minute guy.
Yeah, that's about right.
And you're looking at 34 minutes, and you could say even a little higher than that. The matchup is daunting, but the pace is brilliant. So bump them up to 0.95. You'd end up with a projection. Again, I didn't have time to do the individual projections today. I imagine I'd have him in the 32 fantasy point range. That feels very good. He projects very nicely. For 5K, he's a great play. 4,600 is absurd, or 46% rather is not absurd. I mean, it's a very good play. It might even be the best point per dollar play on the slate, but it's still too high. There's just too many quality plays. Over time, being under that number would be better for you than being over it. It is not by any means a lock. You can have a blowout. That's another thing. People are acting like, Washington is in some like desperation where these guys got to play. They really don't got to play. They have 10 guys there. They're going to play at least 9. They're not really by any extension even shorthanded relative to your average NBA team. So anyhow, that's where I come in. So number 1 is Ish. Number 2 is Montrez. You said at 36.
Yep. I'm gonna just read off some weird ones here. Derek Jones Jr. at 21.
Yeah. Like he probably again plays in the mid 20s in minutes. Even with Duncan Robinson getting 42 last time, he still saw 27. I don't think it's locked in stone. There's a bit of a capacity to fail there. Again, I think I want nominally less, but 3,300 is 3,300. I'm largely ambivalent on that.
We'll get to a couple here in a second. Would you go with LeBron or Anthony Davis if you still can change it, or for the late slate? As your building block, I guess is what they're asking.
Let me run a couple things. I'm not going to look at ownership, obviously, but I do want to, if I want to give a good answer there, because I'm fairly close at those DK prices.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards LeBron myself, but I think it's a very valid question.
Yeah, I will concur with you. Not by them. I have at their prices, those are about proportionally where they should be at 10, 5, and 9, 8, if I remember correctly. I would slightly prefer to spend up to LeBron.
All right, a couple others here. Wagner, 32.
Yeah, too high, but not crazy.
Butler,
there's very few pieces in that game that aren't going to look good. Like if we go back, all right. So let's take a trip down memory lane and look at the time these two teams played. Because again, it was 150 to 125, and Thomas Bryant was in, and Isaiah Thomas
regulation.
But yeah, so but even in that context, I'm guessing none of the Wizards or one of the Wizards was particularly brilliant at their prices. I remember. I want to make sure I get this here. Okay, for some reason I can't download the box from my database, so I'll have to go online to get it. Take an extra 10 seconds. I'll just pull it off ESPN. We'll go old school. It's like when I got started. Just load web pages for everything. Yeah, they played on the 1st of December, so a week ago today. Very easy. Okay, so in that game, Hachimura, who I liked, was very good. Hachimura had 30 and 9 with 3 assists and a steal, and played 38 minutes. Thomas Bryant was in a very good matchup, pretty bad. 31 minutes, and obviously was a little bit hurt. 3 for 11, 9 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. That's not going to get you there. Isaiah Thomas, 25 minutes. A better fantasy producer than Ish Smith by a little bit, by the way. 16 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 turnovers. That's not going to get you there. Bradley Beal, 7 for 19 from the field, 35 minutes, 23 points, 11 assists. So that would be 39.5 fantasy points. 2 steals is 43.5. 5 rebounds is 50.25. 5 turnovers is 47.75. He missed every 3-pointer. So he had 47.75 in this game. 9 of 10 from the line, 7 of 19 from the field, missed all his threes. So again, I would be enheartened by that. He was cheaper then, but I would still feel good about that. He missed every 3-pointer, which again, not so terribly surprising against an elite defense, but you'd figure he'd make 1 of 4 at least. A little more likely 1 of 4 than 2 of 4, but he should have gotten, a 3-pointer to go in, and otherwise it's a fairly typical line, and he only played 35 minutes. So you should be excited. Bertans came off the bench. Actually a lot of peripherals for Bertans. 29 minutes, 20 points, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 steals, 1 block. But you had one great player, Rui Hachimura. At their prices today from this game, you would want Rui Hachimura. That's it. Maybe Bertans, who even with 2 steals, a block, an assist, and 4 rebounds, and shooting 6 of 9 from 3 and 7 of 10 from the field, it's about 36 fantasy points. But again, price on all these dudes came up. If you look at the Clippers, Kawhi was very good, 34, 6, 3, and 1. But, with the blowout, he played 26 minutes. That didn't quite get you there. Paul George, 31, 8, and 1 with a block. Good, but I'm not dancing. Zubac, not good enough. Beverly, not good enough. Montrezl Harrell off the bench, 23 and 15. 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. So just sort of my Lou Williams, 22, 8, and 1. So I imagine on this slate, you wanted from this game Rui Hachimura and probably Montrezl Harrell, and that's it. So, now again, we're looking at a sample size of exactly 1 game, which is a little bit ridiculous, but prices have come up, and this being also sort of an extreme example for number of points scored. Now, a lot of those points got wasted on bench guys. Ish Smith, by the way, played 17 minutes in this game, 4 points, 3 assists, a steal, a rebound, 2 turnovers. So against this very team, with more usage conceivably, playing all of his time basically alongside, Isaac Bonda, and I guess Jordan McRae off the bench takes a lot of usage, but he had 10 fantasy points in 17 minutes. So long way around of saying, 46% Ish Smith is it feels a little high to me. 30 would have been tolerable.
One more question, and then we'll hit the ownership and get out of here. Yahoo pricing, would you rather go, and this 3 points for steals and assists, Yahoo pricing, Anthony Davis and Whiteside, or LeBron and Porzingis?
I guarantee you it's not 3 points for assists. But
pardon me, 3 points for blocks and steals.
I know, I'm just teasing you. I will take LeBron and Porzingis there.
Oh, okay. I went the other way, so glad I asked. Would you do...
I don't have any issue with Anthony Davis and Whiteside. Whiteside, getting very real time, has had a couple ceiling games against Adams in the past, come to think of it. So it's not a necessarily prohibitive spot, but Adams' minutes in production coming up a little bit. Whiteside's fairly cheap, but not a guy I'm super looking to target. Would project him into the, mid to high 30s. So I would slightly prefer the other side for sort of the upside of Kristaps plus LeBron.
Would you do Kristaps or Carmelo?
Kristaps not close.
Okay. All right, last few.
It's like I like Carmelo just fine. Someone said to me today, Rodney Hood is out. I like Carmelo, and I'm like,
that's not how that works.
I'm just like, I'm wondering how he thought it works. I'm like, yes, super low usage guy is replaced with, if you're lucky, equally low usage guys. Like, I don't think it really much matters, but it's probably a net negative. I imagine that Kent Bazemore will be a little more involved in the offense, occasionally call his number a little bit more, has less of a rapport with him than Rodney Hood in theory for less time on the court. I don't know. It's one of those things where I was like, huh?
All right. Fred Van Vliet, 8%.
Yeah, that feels good. How much is Lowry?
Lowry is 5.5. Come on, he's in Philly. That's a thing, right? He's only played there 25 times.
He's in Philly?
He's from Philly. This game's in Philly.
Yep.
People seem to like that one.
Okay, that's a fun one. I have what's like Paul George and Kawhi.
Paul George is 24.
Mm-hmm.
Kawhi is 30.4.
Interesting.
Beal is 25, right in between them.
That all feels basically fine. I think I'd have had roughly as much George as Kawhi with the discount and everything, but obviously that's moved around a little bit. How much is Duncan Robinson?
Duncan Robinson is 15.
Okay, I mean 42 minutes, like against the Bulls. Like it's hard to feel too bad against that. So I know a lot of people had algorithms that were spinning them. How much is Lex Luger? Sorry, that's Tyler. I'll be your hero.
Hero. He is 13.
Okay, so
just
Heater, all these Jimmy Butler. Did you tell me? I can't think of their
Butler is 31. He's the fourth most behind Harold Smith and Mo. Damn it.
Okay, who's the highest on 76er? I don't think we've heard one yet. I don't love any. How much is Joel Embiid, by the way? I'm claiming victory on this.
Embiid is 4.9.
Okay,
he's the highest.
I don't believe that. There's no way Simmons is less than 4.9.
Oh, unless I see. Oh, I'm sorry. Simmons is 6.2. I missed him.
Oh wow, I thought Simmons was gonna be like 10. But okay, that that I can kind of believe. Embiid 5 is fine. And Embiid 11 was like I would have begged and pleaded for 0 at that point. It's just no reason to spend 10 grand there. Like it would be really weird if Joel. That reminds me, I'm gonna go look up Joel Embiid versus Marcus All. We have a minute. Norvell Pell?
Yeah,
scored his first NBA points the other day. Respect that man.
Oh, thank God I got rid of Raul Halzino Neto. He was 0.02. Otto Porter Jr. 0.01. Isaiah Thomas 0.01.
You played yourself.
Jordan McRae 0.01.
You played yourself.
Jonathan Motley Crue.
All right, here are all of your Joel Embiid lines against Marc Gasol. I will first do the 6 regular season was the number. I basically had it. Here we go. Here are your Joel Embiid numbers. We'll go backwards in time because everyone knows the first one. 0 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, no steals, no blocks, 4 turnovers. So, boy, 13 fantasy points in 32 minutes or something. Game before that, 15 and 14. 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. It's like 41. Not too bad. 14 and 16. 5 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 6 turnovers. That's like 45. It's not too bad. Game before that, 14 and 7. 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Okay, that's not good. That's like 33. Game before that, 15 and 14. 1 assist, no steals, no blocks, 4 turnovers. Again, low 30s. Game before that, 12 and 11. 3 assists, 1 steal, 3 blocks, 7 turnovers. That's like 38. So yeah, none of those were good. The singular playoff series this last year, late April into early May. Game number 1, 30 minutes, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. No other statistics. That is like 29. Game number 2, 12 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, no steals, 1 block, 6 turnovers. That is like 24. Game number 3, 33 and 10. That's what I remembered. 33 and 10. So that's 55.5. 3 assists, 60 on the nose, 5 blocks, 70 on the nose, 3 turnovers, 3 3-pointers, which balance each other. 70 fantasy points on the nose. 11, 8, 7, 2, and 2. And these are all like 35-minute games, by the way. We're in the playoffs here. That's not good enough. 13, 6, 1, 1, and 1, and 8 turnovers. That's not good enough. 17, 12, 1, 1, and 2, 5 turnovers. That's not good enough. 21, 11, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 4 turnovers. Yeah, that's not good enough. So he has exceeded 50 fantasy points, which I think we can agree is a minimum acceptable score for 10K one time in 13 games against Marc Gasol. I'm not doing it. Not even at 5%. Like 1 or 2%, sure, it can happen. He had 70. Wasn't like Gasol fouled out of that game. Like, it occurred. And again, just the head-on-head, one-on-one matchup is far from the end of things, but it's enough, and there's enough other guys I want to spend up for. It does seem like good money after bet.
All right, we're going to get on out of here. We do have NFL at 7:30. That will be me and Eric Boge. So come in and check it out. We will be brought to you again by Fantasy Draft, the home of rake-free daily fantasy sports. You can follow Eddie at FastEddieFair on Twitter. I am at EmacDFS, and it is Osmo_COM. With that, gamers,